that I had lived a decade of my life just trying to avoid giants, I realized how meaningless and how frustrating my life was.
Welcome to the Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
But why don't you kick us off with the why? Why do we want to listen in the sales process or in the process of driving change at work?
Yeah, what we started last night really sharing was the role change of, when we're listening in when we don't even have somebody on our radar, how we're listening, why we're listening is just totally different versus now somebody's on our radar, or they have us on their radar. One of the two, somebody's in pursuit of the other person. And so what it is now what happens is I want to listen now more than ever because my gears are trained into hot pursuit. And so what happens is, and we're going to get into these risk and rewards here in a little bit of why it's so important to listen, but it's because we're so geared to pursue. I gave the example last night of a great white with one drop of blood in the water. That great white's coming for whatever that is, and that's what it is like. Whenever somebody likes one of our posts or somebody replies back to one of these emails that we send out, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to sell this person. Doesn't matter what it is, and we got to be careful.
Yes. And I wish many Sonic drinks to people who like our posts, by the way, and our podcasts.
That's it.
And jalapeno poppers. Okay, yeah. So, why listen to the sales process or when we're driving process change at work? I think we have a lot more notes than we did last night, so I'm going to use a lot of them. I'm going to pick and choose, though. There's a lot here.
Okay.
One of them is that, letting people talk is a key to influencing people.
Yeah.
That's really, really true. And also, when people feel they can contribute, then it becomes their idea. I think that's a really good idea. My aunt is one of my business mentors, and she talks about that a lot as well, is that she is a kind of a HR director and operations director for a plumbing parts company. And she works directly for the owners and gives them a lot of counseling and advice. And she sometimes will kind of lead them with questions until they come up with the answer that she knows that they need, but then it's their idea. So it's a really smart strategy of kind of like leading people with questions, and that way it becomes their idea. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, there's a great business and negotiation book called Never Split the Difference, and it's Chris Voss is the author of it, and he's a former FBI hostage negotiator. And that was one of his tactics that he always said. He said, if you were negotiating with somebody and I'm trying to convince them of why things are a good idea for me, that person is already defensive. They're already backing up. They're already, even if it's the right move, it's because it's coming from me. Whereas if you spend your entire time, and again, everything is a negotiation. That's another part of his book. That if we spend our entire time just saying, here's the benefits for you, and we're asking questions that allow this person to walk through that themselves, then again, all we are is a guide, as Donald Miller talks about in StoryBrand. These are key roles that are important, and the more we can develop these attributes, the easier it is for us long term to make stress-free sales for both sides, for me and for the person that I'm having conversations with, which I know you're dealing with.
Yeah.
We want to take the stress out of it. This is beneficial to me, myself, not just the customer. That's important too.
Yeah, that's really good. I love it. Another reason why you want to listen to the sales process is that people like to talk about themselves, their goals, their business, stuff like that. People do like to talk. And so they don't mind if you're funny and if you're engaging and you want to, kind of rap or give them crap about your football team or all that kind of stuff is really great too. But that's, establishing a rapport is really important. But yeah, asking questions that, that are genuinely curious, where you really are curious and you're really feeling it, you're feeling that curiosity, I think is really, really important. What is one way, Beast Mode, that we can actually generate that natural curiosity? And kind of like, if we say, you know what, I'm not as curious as I need to be, so my questioning is limited right now. How can we maybe fan that what little curiosity we might have? How do we fan it into flame a little bit more?
Yeah, one of the ways that I've done this, and I've talked about it previously, the same tactic applies for, I think social media posting. And so for me, some of the questions that I'm asking, are genuine questions that I ask to most people that I'm on the phone with. But what it does is it allows my responses to those questions to be spontaneous, and I can focus my energy into the listening. So I have two or three, preset questions that I believe are genuine, that I believe are thought provoking, that, again, I've spent time in advance, so I'm not having to do that in the middle of my call. I can ask these questions. And again, they're questions that are trying to guide to a certain step, whether it's, are you my customer? Whether it's, are you interested in this product or this service? Or is now the right time? And so I'm just trying to gather these answers and guide along the way. But then what happens is whenever they give a response, I'm 100% actively listening. And now I can be spontaneous with my response when the rest of it was kind of pre-scheduled.
That's really good. I really like that a lot. So I'm going to repeat it back to you, which, by the way, is one of the forms of listening that we talked about last night. Is repeating back for resonance, and then the other person feels heard, but then you also make sure you got it correctly. But what you're saying is like a little bit of prep. So you may not find yourself to be the most creative person in the room. Okay, can you give yourself 20 minutes before the call to come up with like 5 questions or 4 questions that would kind of matter along the cycle that you're trying to sell something, or trying to drive some kind of a program at work, right? So can you come up with 4 or 5 questions that would be relevant? And I don't think they have to be perfect.
No.
By the way, if you judge yourself that way, you'll never get anything done, right? They say that perfection is the enemy of good. I think that's true. Perfection is only for like surgery, or clean labs at Intel. Okay. Good is usually good enough for, sales and driving change. So I think those are really, really good, and those are inspiring. And then I think what the folks can do, Beast Mode, is like, once, let's say they've come up with those 4 or 5 prep questions as you're suggesting, so they don't have to think on the fly, as you say, then they can just ask a follow-up to the answer. So if I ask you about social media, or let's flip it the other way, let's do a little bit more real. So like, let's say you're asking me for my business about social media and where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like, where are you at right now? Right. And it's kind of like a little bit of a broad question. You start with a broad question like that, like, where are you at right now? Tell me your story about where you're at right now with your social media. Right. I mean, I'm going to get, first of all, since it's not a very specific question, I'm going to get like a lot out of that. I'm going to get a real general posture for where Howie's at in terms of his social media. But then the great thing about where we're at now we're in that channel of that topic, of that question. We're in that little mini ecosystem that you created with your prep question. And now you can just ask a follow-up on that. Like, do you have any concern, or what concerns do you have about where you're at right now? Right. That might be a good follow-up. Or what, do you have a vision? Do you have some ideas at least for where you might want to take this to? Right. And so you're still in that, all you're doing is you're unpacking that same question. Right. Are you happy? How happy are, and don't do the closed-ended, y'all. So don't ask a like do question or is, or any of the closed-ended. Make sure it's an open-ended, like who, what, where, when, why, how kind of thing. But yeah, ask an open-ended question as your follow-up, and then I'll tell Beast Mode more about my business. And what's great is like I'm doing all the creativity, right? He's not having to be very creative. All he had to do is ask a compassionate second question, a question where I sense he cares. And there's some curiosity, right?
Yeah, and really, just to be super practical, some of the things that you can do is whatever your product, service, or idea is, you're on the phone with that person, and you just say, how do you think that you're doing right now in this area, whatever field you are in? How do you self-assess yourself? Okay, they give you an answer. My follow-up would then be, how would you self-assess you where you're at now, whether you're good, bad, whatever? Because somebody could say, hey, I'm great. Well, that's wonderful. How would you say you're great as compared to your competitors? Again, let them self-assess, because now if they're being defensive and saying, hey, I don't need your service. Okay, so how do you think you're doing versus your direct competition? Now it may jar them to the point where they'll get a real answer out. And you say, what would you do? Hey, I'm just here listening and learning from you. What would you do to help yourself? And again, you're just walking them through the process. And again, once you get to a certain point, that's when you jump in and you're spontaneous and you have goal-oriented questions to lead them. But in the beginning, yeah, I want this person to begin pouring things out. Chris Voss in that book also has another tactic called mirroring. So when somebody finishes their sentence, you just grab the last 3 to 5 words of their sentence and just say those back to them. Right?
I love that.
And so whenever you do that, and all you do, you don't say anything else. You just grab the last 3 or 5 words and repeat exactly verbatim what they said, and just stop and pause. It causes them to continue that sentence on, or that thought. If you,
really?
yeah.
Okay,
If
cool. Wow,
so.
That's incredible. I did not know that. My wife used that technique with both of my daughters when they were young, and whenever they were really upset, I think I talked to you about this before. But she would actually repeat back to them, ask them a question about how they're feeling. They were like hysterical because they broke that toy. Like, are you upset that you broke the toy? And then it was funny because there's something, and I'm not saying that the negotiator guy, Chris Voss, right? Chris Voss.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's trying to make people not upset, but there may be a therapeutic aspect to which he was calming, like it might have calmed them down by repeating back.
Oh yeah.
Because they felt heard as well. But it worked like a charm for my daughters.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he's dealing with hostages, and so he's trying to take all emotions out as possible.
Yeah, you can imagine they're pretty keyed up or upset. I mean, for sure.
Yeah. And it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Whether it's valid or invalid. You're just trying to bring the situation back to reality. So.
I like that. Well, like I said, I use this at work today. So I have a new hire that we're training, and I'm in the security field and security SaaS software stuff. And so I'm training her on security landscape, as well as growing in the area of customer empathy and curiosity, right? And so I was able to use the stuff that we talked about in our group. We have this business group, y'all. If you ever want to attend, feel free to hit us up on that. It's through our church, and it's partly faith-based, but it's very business-oriented. It's a neat little blend that we've got. And then we talked about the same topic on the podcast last night. So I had all this great knowledge, is incredible, like really rich knowledge that I was able to use today in training her. And it was cool because what I was trying to do is teach her better questioning. And the way I did that, because of our dialogue last night, the way I did it was by asking her questions that would then help her generate questions. So it was a little bit like through questions, I was coaching her to come up with questions. So it was a little bit hard, but it's also like she was owning. I somehow, because of all of our discussions, somehow I just had this idea that if she's going to own this, I need these to all be her ideas. And so I ask her questions to help her discover the way to have more empathy in customer discovery, and exactly what we're talking about with asking questions. So I literally used in training I used a series of questions. I didn't share very many facts with her. And also what I found is like, what I was saying resonated better as a question than as a direct teaching, right? And isn't it weird that if anybody wants to go read the Bible, that Jesus actually asked a lot of questions, and he's like a famous teacher, like, but you would think he would just be saying stuff, and he did say a lot of stuff, but also he actually asked a ton of questions, which is really interesting to have people learn via questions. So anyway, I used it today. It was really, really powerful. It was one of the best training sessions I've ever had, just under an hour. And I'm going to probably use that for the rest of our training.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just imagine the difference in being taught via, just like you would in a math class, where it's just, this is what it is, copy it down, repeat it back, versus if you're in a, philosophy class and you're trying to gain understanding. And the way you do that is not by me just spitting it out to you. It's through your comprehension,
Mm,
you know?
yeah.
And so
Good.
whenever, again, we're talking about change, we're talking about sales. I mean, the hardest part can be is for the person that we're, in conversation with, to help them identify their own need. It's really helpful when the person calls me and says, hey, I'm dying over here, I need your help. Well, perfect, I'm happy to help you, and we'll just go right through the sales process. Here's a proposal, I'll start next week. But
Mhm.
when that person has no idea, they're bleeding out, and you're trying to help them understand, hey, you got a wound here, you got a wound here, without coming across as negative or coming across as higher than you or whatever,
Mm.
it's a lot easier for that person to get them to pause, look in the mirror, or look down. I do have issues. you know
Mm.
what would you do? Could you help me?
Yeah.
And that open door is a lot different.
Yes. So the next kind of major topic along this line was, what are the risks if you don't listen
Mhm.
during the sales cycle,
Yeah,
or as you're driving some kind of change in your organization? What are the risks if you don't listen?
yeah, yeah, we hinted at a lot of these. The biggest one that I'm going to talk about is over pursuit. um, just because I think it's the most common. Is that whenever we get the hint that somebody might be interested, um, a lot of times we go pedal the metal. We'll call a ton of times, we'll email a ton of times, start texting, start blowing them up, and you haven't really listened yet. You've just gotten some interest, and oftentimes you can just blow right through that interest and just smother somebody. Or maybe you haven't smothered them yet, but you get them on the phone, you're not listening, you're just kind of pounding down what you do, how you do it, why it's the best bet, when can I sign you up? And the person's just, they're not there yet, and you're just still pushing and pushing. And it would be best just to take a step back and say, hey, why did you even take this phone call today? What brought you to this call today? Is there something going on? How does that, whatever that is, how's that affecting you? Is that affecting
Mm.
your home life? Is that affecting you in business? And start gathering these things so that now, okay, I completely understand these. I would like to see if I can find some specific things that we do. Let's talk next week on Tuesday, and let's talk about these things. Now I have 4 or 5 key points that we talked about. When we talk again on Tuesday, I can highlight these points, how we benefit, and do you think it would be a great idea? Totally different call.
I like it. I like it. Another concern is, you won't hit the mark with your solution
Yeah.
as well if you don't listen. During the sales process, then you won't. You may specify a solution that is not needed. And last night, one of the points you made that was good is you might even have the right solution, but just the wrong timing.
Mm,
Oh, that was cool. In fact, I thought but just to let you know, by the way, I thought about that today, like at
yeah.
least two or probably at least twice. So that was really, really helpful to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I love doing that.
Mhm.
I I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy closing deals. I mean, I really do. But I really enjoy just being blunt, honest with somebody and say, hey, um, I think this is a great fit, a great solution for you guys. But I really think you should wait 3 months before you engage in it. I think you should do these key things that don't involve me. You don't need to pay me to do these things. You can do these to get yourself ready, and come back. Let's discuss it then. I really enjoy helping somebody do that, or just pointing that out, or just giving them the option. Hey, just letting you know, if we do this now, if we start engaging now, we made the growth or the outcomes may not be as quick because of these key things. So if it was me, I would address these before engaging my services. It will save you and it'll get your outcomes a little bit better. But I mean, again, I'm putting it on your table. If you think you need me to hold your hand, I'm happy to do so. But I'm just letting you know. And again, I can set expectations. So instead of having a 90-day plan, maybe it's 120 days. And again, these are all okay, but I want to be all on the same page. Because again, we talked about this as part of the risk too, that if I push too soon, I get you signed on, but maybe it's more my idea than your idea. Then whenever the problems come, and problems will come, they do every time, then the problems are 100% my fault because it wasn't our idea. It was my idea versus your idea. Does that resonate with you?
Yep, it does. Yep. Yeah, you pushed it too early, and so therefore they kind of like bent over backwards. They weren't really ready. You just kind of closed them hard, and they just went ahead and did it. And then things go wrong, and then it's almost like buyer's remorse, but it's kind of your fault. Yeah, I could see how that would happen.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
We one of the points that came up last night, actually there's two that are really great that I want to bring up. The first one is have short feedback loops. And so that was so great. What did you like that too?
Yeah,
Paul brought that up. Yeah, he's a beast. So it's interesting, guys. Paul is actually on the IT side. So this wouldn't be a sales thing as much, although I feel like it could be very valuable for sales too. But what Paul is, he's a scrum master on an agile software development team. I think he works with the cloud a lot, and he's a super cool guy, good friend of ours in this group that we have. But what he said is that, one of the risks if you don't listen in business when you're driving change, in his case, it's application development. But what if you don't have a short feedback loop, which is like checking with your end customer, is this what you were expecting? And asking those questions and listening, then what will happen is you'll be like 6 months down the road developing an application and you miss the mark, right?
Yeah.
And I told the story of my startup where I did do that. And I built the whole website and the whole application, this novel thing. And I just thought, because friends and family thought it was incredible, that it would be like this viral website, and it like totally failed. And so I should have had a shorter feedback loop where it's like, maybe I do like 2 months of development and just pay for 2 months of development, right? So maybe I spend like 20 grand, which would have been worth it to like exit stage left if it didn't work. But instead I built the whole thing out 125, and then it didn't work. Like, you tell me the math on that. Like, a shorter feedback loop, I would have been able to really have user input in a deeper way. I did seek some user input, but just not enough. So yeah, short feedback loop was one point that came up last night. Do you want to unpack that some more, or was that enough on that one?
Yeah, I really enjoy that. It's really hard. It's hard to do that at this stage in the process in which we're talking about, especially if it's more of the sale. If it's in your change management, sometimes you can do that. You can kind of float the idea, get some feedback, and then if there's a lot of negativity, okay, I need to get a lot more stats. I'm gonna have to beef this thing up before I bring it to the table. But it's hard to do that with the sales side of it. You can't really ask and garner that a lot of times. But what you can do is you're having that constant feedback along the way. So as we're going through the process, I should be asking, are you comfortable with where this at? Are you comfortable with where we're going? Are you comfortable with expectations? And you're getting these in the loop, as opposed to, are you comfortable with price? Are you comfortable with contract length? those are key, but I mean, we need to be asking more poignant feedback besides just those.
I like that. One of the ways in a sales cycle to use short feedback loops is something that I taught my team recently at work, which is to use a mutual action plan. So after every meeting, you document what you and the customer, the prospect talked about. And it's kind of like a recap email. Like, here's the next steps. Here's the 4 or 5 things that we agreed to. Here's the owner of those. I have seen it where people even put in like estimated timeframes to completion of each item. But you don't have to write a book. But if it's like 4 or 5 items of what the path is, the next step is, that's really useful. And we call it a mutual action plan or a map. And then, so it's like the top part of the email is a list of what's coming next that we agreed on. And by the way, that's also time to slip one in. If you forgot to bring one up, you can say, hey, by the way, we didn't talk about this, Susan, but I wanted to actually include number 6 because I forgot to mention, we should probably look at this as well in the process. If you disagree, let me know. If not, I'll assume you agree with me. So anyway, that's the top part of the email. It's almost like greeting, thank you, and then mutual action plan. And then below that, I like to include, here's like the pain points that we talked about, right? Here's kind of what you're solving for as well. And again, that's kind of like reflective listening. It's kind of like helping the customer know that you're tracking or whatever. And then what I do is I copy and I paste that exact set of notes right there from an email into my CRM system under their record or under the opportunity or whatever. And then I have all of that there. So now I know, like, at all times, because every meeting I send a fresh one, I know at all times what the mutual action plan is that the customer has seen lately. Because after every customer meeting, I email it to them and then I paste it in the CRM, the new one. And so that's super helpful as a way of kind of like in the sales cycle, or even if you're driving change at work, sending out that summary is a great way of active listening and reflective, and also making sure people feel heard, and also almost like condensing all the stuff that was said on the call into this tidy little space where we can do something with it.
Yeah. And if you're listening to that right now and it just scared you, that's okay. Because Howie has a lot of experience and he's very detail oriented. And so if listening to all that is just really just overwhelming, try a little bit of it. Try just recap. Try 1 or 2 points. Try something to get some, again, because this is a feedback loop for you too. You want to try it out to see if your customers enjoy that, to see if you're getting feedback on it too. So
it is a little bit of work for sure. I like what Beastmode said. If you just say, thanks, Susan, it was great meeting with you. I think our next step is A and B. That's a great start.
Yeah.
A and B, you can write 2 sentences, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it helps you, and then you can copy that into your CRM, right? Because you better have notes. We'll talk about the benefit of notes here in a second, because there is a great one. But before we get, because I think last time I covered that last.
Yeah.
What else do you want to cover though? As far, I mean, I feel like we've done a decent amount. I don't mind doing a few more minutes to kind of share just a little bit more. Do you want to kind of cover a couple more things? Maybe a couple things around the rewards if you do listen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to close out on those, the rewards.
Yeah.
I mean, the big rewards. We get that. You're closing the deals. You're going to change. You're going to get the change you desire. But I mean, it's really you're going to get the deal because it's a good deal for both people. That's a better deal. You're going to get the change because it's a change that's needed for both parties, and everybody's going to be all in. That's where we're headed.
I like it. So first of all, you're going to get the deal, or you'll find out that it's not a deal, and that's valuable too, right?
Oh, so valuable.
Yeah.
Don't get mad. Really don't get mad about that. I have grown to really enjoy that. Like, I catch myself whenever a customer identifies that they're not my customer. I used to bother me, and now it's just like, oh, well, thank you for saving me a ton of time. I don't have to chase you.
Yeah. A lot of customers are not honest. And so when you find one that it's like, hey, I'm not sure we're a fit, or hey, I'm not going to move forward, it's like, thank you so much for not just ghosting me and giving me the courtesy of letting me know that. That really means a lot. I can have more of a relationship and friendship with you now because you're a trustworthy person.
Yeah. Yeah. And, probably in the past, I would try to still convert that person and let them know. But you just, there's
Don't
so
spin your cycles. Yeah.
yeah, there's so many more out there that are.
And sometimes it's a timing no. I mean, at my company, we actually track our lost deals because really we consider those leads. That's how we treat our lost deals, as leads. And so we're keeping in touch, we're educating, we're inviting them to webinars, we're doing this and that. So I think that's something to remember as well, is that a lot of times it's just no for now. So don't be too discouraged that every no is a solid forever no. It's probably not the case. I think Paul mentioned last night, and we're trying to give a little bit of credit. If you want to know who Paul is, or Patty is, or Randy is, you have to join our group. The second and fourth Tuesdays of the month, and if you come, just know that you have an opportunity to share with some great people and be encouraged. It is a spiritual event too, so it's a combo kind of spiritual and business event. So if you're down with that, we're down with having you come. So hit us up if you'd like. But what Paul did say was also, in your questioning and in your listening, be comfortable with silence. I thought that was really good.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a big fan of silence, of just sitting there. And I've heard it from a lot of, key executives who talk about closing or talk about, anything really in conversation. You have somebody on the phone and, they're being difficult, just sit there for a minute. They will start talking, and again, that 10 seconds, 20 seconds feels like a lifetime, but it feels like a lifetime to them too. And if you just hold fast, the conversation will continue.
Yeah.
Or they'll hang up, and that's okay. There you go.
That's really good. One of the Jared was in the group last night, and he said he gave us a book. I'm going to try to find this book title for y'all because he recommended it. It's on Amazon. He sent us the link in our little chat app, but it's called Raised Myself. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure that is it. Let me look it up just in a second here. It is available on Amazon, and it's called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. And this apparently is a book from like maybe the 1920s or 30s or something. Anyway, we don't know exactly. I haven't looked it up, but a long, long time ago. And apparently what this former baseball player did was just ask questions until the very, like literally from the beginning of the sales cycle till the end, and the customer sold themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really cool and really interesting to think about. It's inspiring. I think I am going to probably get this book, to be honest. It's on Audible. It's on Kindle and Audible. So I think I am going to actually have some credits to use. So I probably will buy this. But anyway, it's Frank Bettiger, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. And apparently the big thing is he just asked questions from the beginning of the sales cycle to the end, and people sold themselves. So I think people are smart about their needs. They're going to be smarter about their needs than you are. And so when you're pushing stuff and trying to sell them services or software or hardware or something, or trying to drive change internally at your company all by yourself and just pushing your ideas, which I am guilty of worse than anybody. Like I said, we had to record it, so people don't know this, but I actually had a big failure at work yesterday in trying to drive some change, a huge belly flop in the pool. Not like anybody was unkind, and I was kind too, but I did fail because it was more like I was, I think there's multiple layers to the failure, to be honest, but I wasn't asking enough questions as well. There's also kind of a timing thing and some other reasons, but I think as we're driving, if we can ask questions, people know more about their situation than you or I do. So what if we just let them sell themselves by asking questions?
Yeah. And I guess my final thought that I'm going to close out with, and then if you want to close this out.
Yeah, I want to share that story. Yep.
Is my two examples yesterday that I gave were the cheetah and the tiger, and that there's times where you need to be a cheetah. You're coming hot out of the gates and you're going after that sale and you're going for it. But there's the risk of being a cheetah when you need to be a tiger is when you miss that sale or you miss that change and you fly past, and the cheetah is often the one who's getting hurt in those circumstances. and it's hurting the cheetah, not just instantaneously right then, but often they're wounded for a period of time to where they can't get back out there for those sales. And I mean, I know that, I mean, Howie's talking about it now, that he's still resonating a day or two after a possible moment whenever he went too hard, you know, and how it affects me, the on my side of it. And so there, I mean, that's one of the risks. But then there's the tiger side of it, where the tiger is stalking and constantly keeping in contact and constantly getting close and staying within a certain realm. And there's time for that approach too. And often, I mean, I would swing to be more of a tiger more often than not, and focus there. And then, you know, if you need to bolt into cheetah mode, do it. But there's those two different approaches, and there's benefits and there's risks to both. So
It's good. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. You know, the problem is the idea that I had is absolutely game changing for work.
yeah,
So it doesn't matter that your idea is awesome. I mean, I have two ideas right now. One of them nobody responded to, and the other one I had a belly flop. Like because I had
yeah,
another one today. Um, so it's like there's timing, there's consensus selling, getting multiple people on the team. There is patience with seed planting and then watering and then, you know, weeding and watering again and letting the sunshine, giving it time. You know, we have to understand that there's a spectrum to business change or selling, and we have to give people a little time. And listening, I think, is a good part of that seed watering and sunshine process. That listening
yeah.
is a part of it. The story I'm going to tell, and then we can wrap up and tell them all of our deets, all of our details, is for the last two companies that I've worked at, this one and the last one, I have gone through CRM data, through 2-3 years of CRM data, customer relationship management, so like Salesforce data. And I've looked at Salesforce opportunities, hundreds of them, hundreds and hundreds of them. And I've read the rep sales notes, right? So from the literally, it's custom. We're talking about listening. This is listening. I'm literally reading the notes of the rep who's typing what the customer is saying in the sales cycle. Okay. And from that, I turn that into, I put each of the customer answers for what their key issues are into an Excel, you know, cell. All right. And so I come up with like, here's the customer name, here's what vertical they're in, this is a hospital, this is a bank, whatever. I usually use that. And then I have, you know, here's the 5 issues that they're seeing. You know, they have a small staff, they have a low budget, they have concerns about 24/7 coverage, you know, whatever their key issues are, right? And then I go to the next opportunity. I read and sometimes I'm talking about reading 3 pages of notes. I'm trying to pick through what are the pain points here, and I'll write those down. And now I've consolidated that. And so now I've got XYZ Bank, and, you know, it's like, you know, here's their 3 issues, right? And so what I do is I go through all these sales opportunities. It's very manual. It's kind of a manual data mining process, but I'm just reading and distilling it down to a statement. Okay. And then what you do is you take all of those statements and then you standardize them, right? So one customer says they're struggling with a small security staff. Another customer says no security personnel. Another one, the way they said it was close to it. It's like small staff due to security turnover, right? It's like those are 3 things that are all about small staffing, just different ways of saying it and thinking about it. So I turn that into one common thing, and I call it, and I just standardize it with like small security staff. So now let's just say I've read 400 Salesforce opportunities, and I've read all of the pain points of all the customers, and I've turned those into common language, right? Now and I'm just going to use the example I used last night. I've got let's just say I've got 12 big topics that we're running into when people come to us for, let's just say, like in my company's case right now, for security products, security services, right? And so now I've got, let's say, hundreds of examples boiled down into like the 12 disciples of pain, right? I've got like the big issues like we're seeing in the industry. Now I'm more educated than any number of customer that I speak to, right? Because I've talked to, you know, yeah, Susan's with a bank. I've talked to 40 banks. I've read the notes from 40 banks or 500 banks, you know what I mean? And I know what the key issues are for banks. what's great about that is like, that's customer listening too. It's not even on the phone. That's just listening to your data and just reading. It's just, I mean, you could do this. You're just reading notes and saying, okay, what do I kind of take out of this? Right. And you jot down, here's 2 or 3 issues. I kind of take out, and you move on to the next customer and write those down. And then you basically count them. Now you can like total, and like, hey, I had out of those 400 accounts that I read about, I had, the top issue was small security staff. And it was this percent, 45% of the time, people are struggling in the banking sector with small security staff, right? That's a very valuable stat. Now, when I'm on a discovery call, ready to listen to Susan's concern about her security goals, I've got this great list because I took the time to read notes, which is just listening in a different way. And I'm educating her, and I'm maybe even like showing on the screen on a Zoom, I'm showing, hey, here's the 12 issues that we kind of see. Now, Susan, you mentioned you had issue A, B, and C, and those aren't on here, as you can see, but there's actually 9 other issues you didn't mention. I'm curious, could we maybe unpack a little bit? Are any of these other issues that we commonly see things that you also see, right? Now your discovery is like, oh, and she's like Beastmode, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, we do. We have these 3 issues as well. I actually had more issues than I realized, and I'm so happy that you've educated me on some other topics and other goals that that we can really knock out by working together, right? So now she's double the smart. She's got 6 issues she can go work on to improve her business. And so all I did was active listening by reading notes. So all you guys have to do to prepare for this is make sure that you or your sales team, whatever it may be, your marketing team, are capturing customer feedback, are capturing notes, and then do something with it every 2 years. Just like read all your notes and do this little mini study. It is a lot of hours, but then now you've got this beautiful. I know Jared's in social media too, and last night when I brought the story up, he said he wishes his clients would do this kind of thing because it's like that's like perfect marketing material, like those pain points. It's like educating your market, right? Or for sales or discovery or prospecting. So yeah, just thought I'd leave you guys with that story. It's really helped me out. It's really worked for me at the last 2 companies, and we hope it helps y'all as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're looking forward. I think we got 3 more episodes on listening. And so you guys stay tuned for that. Invite your friends. Again, you can find this podcast anywhere that podcasts are distributed. You can also, again, catch the video portions, including the group that we were talking about on YouTube. So if you can sample that before you join us on the 4th Tuesday of this month. And then also, again, if you're wanting to engage with us, maybe with an email, again, you can hit us up at our email, howieandbeastmode@gmail.com. But until next time, appreciate you, Howie.
Appreciate you too.
I feel like sometimes we're a little too agreeable in the way we deliver, and because we don't want to, kind of burn a bridge or make someone feel stupid or whatever,